All right. All right. All right. We are live. Should be live. Hopefully. YouTube wants to work properly today. Why are we not live? Why are we not live? Are we live? Why does it say upcoming? Are we live? Why is it? Okay, we are live now. There we go. It took a couple minutes. The feed was delayed. I think we're good. Strange. I've never had that happen before. I think we're good though. Let's see. Testing one,
Strange.
two. I've never had that. Yes, we are. Okay. Excuse me. my voice is partially gone. My voice is partially gone because of yesterday's stream. Covered the election for almost 8 hours straight. What a crazy race. Some of those states were very close to going either way, and then slowly but surely, Trump took the lead. A lot of big battleground states like Arizona, battleground states like Pennsylvania, a lot of very interesting swing states that have gone to Donald Trump. Actually, it appears, well, no, Trump is already president. This is already a 100% thing. He's got 291 electoral votes over Kamala's 223. I'm not exactly sure what is going on here, but I would assume Arizona, Nevada, and Alaska all went to Trump as well. What a fucking crazy night. What an absolute crazy night that happened. Let's get into, I only have a couple clips today. Didn't have much time to prepare for the stream today due to all the craziness that happened yesterday. Let's get into it, shall we? We have Canada's public broadcaster, the CBC News, is comparing, or they compared, Donald Trump to the funny mustache man in denying the truth of the Hunter Biden laptop story. Look, the CBC, they passed a bill to cut a bunch of jobs recently. Still waiting for that to be implemented. Still waiting for the CBC to get defunded. A state government funded news organization here in Canada is not necessary. And to be quite honest with you, that is billions of dollars that could be going to other things. Instead, it is a bunch of fake news, a bunch of mainstream garbage news. But let's get into this clip here, shall we?
The fraud this, fraud that, and then there was never any evidence, really, at all. And yet people seem still willing to take his word, theoretically, that it was, the fix was in. Like, that's the part that I don't understand in a system that would seem to be working.
Well, yeah, his court challenges didn't go anywhere. The argument J.D. Vance has made subsequently is that, okay, well, it might not have been rigged at the ballot box, but they did suppress a laptop that would have changed votes. We know that. They did change voting rules all over the place.
That's not true. Let's not spread misinformation on air. That's not true.
It's absolutely true. We have public polling for it.
That's not true, which is why there's been no litigation around it and no one's been held liable for that. There's been absolutely no.
I'm talking about a media narrative story. I'm not talking about actually rigging of an election. That's the J.D. Vance argument. I'm just giving you J.D. Vance's argument. But yeah, you're right. It does undermine, it does create long-term problems for the Republican Party to not believe in the vote. The voting system that has been set up. Some of the states have taken action. Georgia's fixed up, their system a bit. What they all need to do, and I don't know why they don't do this, is just call Jeb Bush and have him come in and do what he did to Florida, and just do that in your state.
Let's talk about exactly the question that you're asking is one that I've been catching a lot of heat for answering on air, and we've been talking about this in the last week or two. You're talking about the propaganda campaign and the playbook of Trump. This is not new. This is not surprising. This is directly out of Hitler's playbook. This is out of an autocrat playbook. This is a way to, I mean, the things that Trump has done masterfully, frankly, is to get the entire, to get a big part of the population to believe that the game is rigged and to sow distrust in public institutions and the free press. That
you
is
shouldn't. This is exactly why nobody believes anything you say anymore. This is why you have lost all credibility as a news association. You're an absolute joke. You are so incredibly biased. You can't sit there and look at it from any other perspective but the simple fact that Donald Trump is equal to the funny mustache man. These people are deranged. It's just truly sad. He lives rent-free in their head. They demonize him in every aspect they can. This is just pathetic from the CBC, and I can't wait for each and every single one of these people to get cut, for the CBC to be defunded, for it to be abolished, and to free up billions of dollars, Canadian taxpayer dollars, by the way, funded by the government, the CBC, pure garbage. Get it out of here. Get it going. Bye-bye. This happened yesterday, and I would assume it's probably still up today. The Manulife building in Toronto this morning. Lest we forget. What a beautiful memorial. What a beautiful setup. A patriotic setup for Canada. Respecting the veterans, respecting the ones who laid their lives down on the line, who put everything behind them to keep this country safe, to keep this country free. So yes, lest we forget, and hopefully we see more stuff like this. We saw the Lest We Forget crosswalk that was painted, another very beautiful piece of memorial, or whatever you want to call it. We need to see more stuff like this. We need to see more respect for our veterans. We need to see more respect for the people who, like I said, put everything behind them, put their lives on the line for our country. This is a beautiful, beautiful picture, beautiful memorial. We need to see more of it here in Canada. More respect for the veterans, more respect for our troops. And if you want my honest opinion, we need to respect them more than just in November, because when it comes down to the day of Remembrance Day, a lot of people just forget and they don't remember. So we need to push remembrance beyond just November, because the people right now in our country are forgetting. And with the way things are going politically, with the crazy activist organizations running rampant in our streets, it's gotten to the point where the freedom is slowly going away. You have a Indian civil war breaking out in Brampton. 6 fighting, Khalistanis fighting Hindus, attacking temples. This is not what these people laid their lives down on the line for. Not to see chaos erupting in our streets. Anyway, that is my little rant for the day. Let's get into the CPAC headline politics. Probably just going to be a bunch of recaps. We could do something a little different. If you guys want to lose brain cells, we can listen to Chrystia Freeland speaking with reporters.
Emphasized the past relationship, you've emphasized the past trade deal, but these seem like a real threat to Canada's economy. He's talking about 10 to 20% tariffs. Presumably he was aware that the renegotiated NAFTA exists when he was talking about them. So I'm just wondering, is your government's plan just to rely on old relationships, or do you have something?
What's up, Southpaw? What's up, Persona? What's up, Badass? Thank you for joining. If you guys are new, make sure you hit that like button, hit that sub button, turn the notification bell on. Right now, we are waiting for question period to start at 2 p.m. And we are also... I'm kind of debating watching this or not, because I like my brain intact as it is, and Chrystia Freeland tends to... well, it feels like a very long night of drinking after listening to her speak. Let's just say that.
Hey, with this new U.S. administration, but that we absolutely thrive. And that plan is going to be built on three things. One, having the relationships. That is important. Two, the economic fundamentals. At the end of the day, the reason that we were successful in getting a win-win outcome.
What's up, Frosty? What's up, Miss Helith Razor? How's everybody doing today on this fine Wednesday?
Is beneficial to both parties. The fact is, Canada is different from the rest of the world when it comes to the U.S. We are the single biggest export market for the U.S., bigger than China, Japan, and the U.K. combined. That means that gives us leverage. That gives us some real power in that relationship. It is also the case that our relationship with the United States is uniquely mutually beneficial. We build things together, and Canadian workers do not undercut U.S. workers. We have similar labor and environmental standards, and we are both high-wage countries. These fundamentals are really, really important and are the basis of the good relationship we have in.
She's not just whiny. I also don't believe a single thing she says when she speaks. Like, not a single word coming out of her mouth.
Have a plan, and we are going to be executing on that plan. I want to give you guys one, I think, very powerful piece of evidence that there is just that the economic fundamentals are really in place today to ensure we have a win-win relationship with the economic relationship with the United States, and that we will have.
What's up, Russell? What's up, Lucy Ball? How's it going?
Is the acquisition by Cleveland Cliffs and Lorenzo Gonsalves of Stelco. Lorenzo Gonsalves is a leading American steel producer. I don't think he will mind my saying, he has been a long-standing supporter of President Trump. He chose to acquire a major Canadian steelmaker. Now, would he do that if he did not believe in the fundamentals of the economic relationship between our two countries? I don't think so.
And just following up, President Trump has also been quite insistent on the idea that NATO countries need to hit the 2% spending target on defense spending. Canada will not hit that target in 2032, which is the end of your current plan. You'll be higher, you'll be spending much more, but you won't hit it. I'm wondering if there is room in the fiscal framework for more defense spending and for more defense spending more quickly.
So let me just say, we have said we'll hit our target by 2032. The Prime Minister said that, and we will do that. I think it's also really important to underscore that when it comes to security as well, the Canada-U.S. relationship is unique. Canada and the United States
You've already said this.
share the world's longest unmilitarized border, and we have a shared responsibility for the security of our shared continent. Canada has been investing heavily in NORAD. That is a very trusted relationship, and that is an underpinning of Canada's security, but also the security of the United States. And, you know, for me, another really important proof point of the mutual and mutually beneficial interdependence of Canada and the United States is what has been happening in critical minerals and metals. Both of our countries recognize that we need to make our supply chains more resilient. Both of our countries recognize that we need to reduce our dependency, particularly on China. And we've been working really hard together on critical minerals and metals. And to really highlight how important this is, not just to Canada, but to the United States, and how highly the United States values Canada's contribution when it comes to critical mineral and metal supply chains, not just to American economic security, but to national security. We have seen the Pentagon investing in and supporting directly critical minerals and metals projects in Canada. To me, that is a really strong sign of how closely we work together and how mutually beneficial our relationship is. We're dependent on each other. We support each other. That's what makes a win-win relationship in the economy, in national security.
Boris Prou, Le Devoir.
Bonjour, Madame la Vice.
Hello, Deputy Prime Minister. I've heard that you have a plan to avoid the tariffs promised by the Trump campaign, but I would like to know if your government or a future government was not able to stop such a situation. The Chamber of Commerce in Canada published an analysis saying that it could cost about $100,000 per person on both sides of the
Why is she so twitchy?
implemented. Can your department confirm that it would cost that much in a worst-case scenario? Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I said this earlier. I didn't really want to listen to her, but we're waiting for question period. There's literally nothing else going on. She's talking about the US-Canada relations right now, so... Right now it's in French. We get to listen to a translator instead.
In fact, I would like to do the opposite. I would like to highlight the importance of the relationship between Canada and the United States. We are dependent on one another. That is why we were able to...
What's up, Yosofat? How's it going? What's up, Studio 778? No more. Bad Gov. How's it going? What's up, everybody? What's up, Irvin, Lisa, Frosty? I think I already said what's up, but I'll say what's up again. How's everybody doing today?
And what is key is that Mr. Trump is the one who negotiated with Ambassador Lighthizer on the agreement that we have now. We have economic ties that were created by President Trump and his team. President Trump himself also believes that these relationships are mutually beneficial, and I agree with him. I agree with Ambassador Lighthizer. We have a good agreement. We have a mutually beneficial relationship, and that's the reality. And that makes me confident.
Freeland's broom is under her desk.
To have
She's gonna go fly over to Hogwarts after this.
economic relationships for Canada and the United States. Question: can you talk to us now about Ukraine and what Mr. Trump has said about Ukraine? Should Ukraine's allies be concerned with Trump's return to power? And do you intend to play a larger role internationally for Ukraine? Thank you for the question. I will be speaking about this with the Prime Minister later today. I would like to start by addressing Ukrainians directly. Canada is a strong ally and is loyal to Ukraine. We understand the significance of the war, and it is a war between democracy and dictatorship. And we have been here for Ukraine, and we will continue to be there for Ukraine, and we will work with all of our allies to assist Ukraine. I also want to highlight the key role that Canada played in leadership regarding.
Yeah, and she's gonna say we have a unique relationship again. Yeah, watch, she'll say it again.
And European countries to give $50 billion to Ukraine.
50 billion? Where are we getting that from?
And we have
Are those
worked hard
seized assets from Russia or whatever? 50 billion? We're giving it to Ukraine?
We finalized this plan 2 weeks ago in Washington during a meeting with G7 finance ministers. This was intentional negotiation, and this is significant support, $50 billion. We needed to have true collaboration with the United States, Japan, the UK, the European Union, and Canada. And Canada played a leadership role, and it's very important. It's more important than ever that Ukraine receives that support.
Sure. So thank you for the question about Ukraine. I'm going to be speaking to the Ukrainian Prime Minister later today. And I do want to start by saying directly to our Ukrainian allies that we are here for Ukraine today. We're going to be here for Ukraine tomorrow. We are going to continue to work.
Let me guess, we're going to be here for Ukraine in the next 10 years when this fight is still continuing?
We recognize that the fight in Ukraine is a fight between democracy and dictatorship, and that the Ukrainians are fighting for us. Something really important that I want to mention in that context is the fact that at the IMF World Bank meetings in Washington a couple of weeks ago, on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank meetings in Washington, the G7 finance ministers concluded a very important agreement for the support of Ukraine. This is something that our G7 leaders announced at their summit at the beginning of the summer. A really novel and creative and collaborative arrangement whereby using the assets, the frozen assets of the Russian Central Bank as security, we have come together to extend a $50 billion loan, a $50 billion sum of money to Ukraine.
Don't worry, we're only going to be listening to her lies for another 10 minutes or so. Question period is coming up very soon. Trust me, this is just as painful for me as it is for each and every single one of you. The sniffling and the twitching, I've had enough of it.
Dollars is an important source of support for Ukraine, and the Ukrainians have that now. It was intentional that we wrapped that up a couple of weeks ago. I'm glad they have that support. And if you guys will permit me, look, I know that this is...
We don't want to permit you anything. We just want you to leave, Chrystia Freeland. Please, do us all a favor.
Certain they're feeling anxious, and it's been important. It is important for me to reassure them. I think a lot of the brave people of Ukraine are feeling anxious. So I'd just like to...
10 minutes is too long.
Я хочу сказати нашим друзям в Україні, що Канада...
What the? She's speaking.
Ми стоїмо з вами.
She's speaking Slavic.
Будемо стояти з вами завтра. Ми розуміємо,
What is going on?
це війна між демократією і диктатурою. Ми горді
Сука, блядь, Shalava.
і будемо далі вас підтримувати.
Brian Platt, Bloomberg.
Hi, Minister Freeland. You were talking about the importance of your relationships when it comes to the incoming Trump administration, second Trump administration. Of course, one of the key relationships will most likely be with Robert Lighthizer, who you know well from the first time around. Firstly, have you stayed in regular contact with Mr. Lighthizer? And secondly, how do you think he views Canada when it comes to tariff policy? And is he open to the kind of, does he view the interdependence the same way you do and
That was some commie bullshit if I've ever seen it.
brings in tariff?
I actually did speak with Ambassador Lighthizer a few times yesterday, and I have been in touch with him. I've stayed in touch with him, and he stayed in touch with me. I have a lot of respect for Ambassador Lighthizer, and he is more than capable of speaking for himself, so I'm not going to put words in his mouth. I will say that one of the things that I discussed with Ambassador Lighthizer over the summer was China. He has, long before it became fashionable, had some very clear views about Chinese overcapacity and the impact that it had on Western economies, particularly on manufacturing industries, and the impact that it was having on the middle class and middle class workers. So that is something I've discussed with him. And that's an area where Ambassador Lighthizer and I are very strongly in agreement.
You've also been careful so far to describe the USMCA as Donald Trump's deal, and you said something he should be proud of. He does have potentially a much different team coming in around him this time than what he had last time. It seems like he'll have fewer free traders coming into his administration, but we'll see. Do you view it as a certainty that the USMCA will be renegotiated during this coming term? And if so, do you feel that you need to prepare Canadians for that we're going to go through another round of negotiating a new trade deal?
Oh, Brian, I'm not going to make any predictions about decisions or actions, any.
All right, I couldn't do it anymore. I'm sorry, guys. I couldn't do it anymore. For the sake of all of our brain cells and all that is good on this earth, I could not do it anymore. Holy crap, dude. Her voice is interesting, to say the very least. Right now, we are looking at the doors to the House of Commons, and apparently some MPs are set to speak with reporters before question period. I don't know who's going to speak with MPs, but if I had to guess, it's probably Jagmeet or the bloc leader or one of those two. That's typically who shows up. Sometimes the Green Party leader shows up, but she's so incredibly irrelevant that I forget her name. Elizabeth May? I always want to say Elizabeth Warren. I don't know why, but they pretty much look the same. Elizabeth May, Elizabeth Warren. Right? Pretty much the same person at the end of the day. Bye-bye, Snake Face. Yes, it was very painful. I'm sorry. I was hoping she would speak more in French or something so we wouldn't have to listen to her in her entirety, but I have a very bad feeling she's gonna appear today in the House of Commons, and we will get our Mr. Speaker. We'll get that a couple times today, most likely. as we're waiting, as we are waiting, excuse me there, I'm going to be looking at Justin Trudeau's itinerary. Look at this. He's actually going to attend question period. Well, it is Wednesday. He should be attending on Wednesdays. They had a national caucus meeting, another caucus meeting where Trudeau most likely, I don't want to say what he most likely did, but we can all put two and two together to what he most likely did to the MPs of his party. Probably told them to follow suit, or you get a nice timeout. You go to the timeout corner. Let's just say that. My commie sister votes for May. Wow. That is quite something. What's up, Sean? How's it going? What's up, Canada RV? What's up, Valerie? What's up, 12 Monkeys? How's it going? Hopefully everybody is doing well. We got the doors opening here to the House of Commons. Take a look at this guy right here, all suited up, ready to go, looking like he's from the 1800s. He possibly could have sailed the seas with Christopher Columbus. And then you got this guy with the man bun walking by. I don't know what's going on here. He's got a sword. He's got a saber. He literally could be a pirate for all we know. Part of the British Navy. Oh my god, anyone see that DEI EPS? I don't know what you mean by that, but no. I did not. He needs the big wig, indeed he does. Busy making sourdough bread. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Freeland, the Wicked Witch of the West. Alberta doesn't claim. Parliament police? If the Parliament police are looking like sailors from the 1800s or whatever, carrying around sabers, I think that would be quite interesting. But no, I think the Parliament police just look like normal police. They're just suited up. I don't know what's going on here right now, though. Somebody's supposed to come out and speak. So we're waiting. I didn't want to listen to Freeland anymore. I felt like I had lost enough brain cells. Probably lost IQ points listening to her. Need to go on a long walk after listening to her. Can't afford a $6 loaf. Yeah, no kidding. It's gotten insane. It has gotten way too crazy. $100 worth of groceries today is a fraction of what it was even 10 years ago, even 15 years ago. I mean, yes, we can go back like 30 years ago, but it has gotten quite crazy. That is for sure. Making broccoli chicken fettuccine Alfredo. You're making me hungry, Frosty. That sounds good. That sounds good. So happy Trump won. Hopefully he keeps his promise about Trudeau going to states and being arrested. I think Trudeau is going to be staying far away from the states. All I know is Trudeau, by every international leader, he's looked at as a weak leader, a pathetic leader, a joke of a leader. It makes our country look, he makes our country look incredibly bad. He makes Canadians look incredibly bad. He continues to tarnish the reputation of Canada, much like his father did before. His father got stoned by protesters, and Trudeau got the same treatment nearly 25, 30 years later. So, tells you quite a bit about the Trudeau family and their ways of thinking and the policies they want to enact. I need to have a tequila shot after listening to Twitchy. I'm the next WEF puppet that will be fired by the people. Hell yeah. I just read the name and I saw the profile picture. oh, that's Yeah, hey, believe it or not, with everything that Trudeau has done in his past, people have voted him in numerous times, even with those pictures surfacing from his past. What an interesting time to be alive. What an interesting time to be here on this channel, witnessing people walk back and forth in front of the House of Commons doors. Question period should begin any minute, guys. We are just waiting for, what is it, the Scepter of Power to arrive, or did that already arrive? Did the Indiana Jones trinket arrive yet? We're about to find out. Have one before, during, and after. Yeah, have a tequila shot before, during, and after listening to Freeland. Yeah. Too many tequila shots and you might end up twitchy, kind of like her. Oh, what's going on here? Is this the, Yeah, there it is. Look at this, man. It's so funny. Our parliament is literally pure theatrics. Like, just pure theatrics. It actually makes me laugh. It is so entertaining at times. What's up, 2 flips, 4 twists? What's up, Ronald J? What's up, Tiffany? How's everybody doing? We finally have some people showing up here. What is this, the NDP? Ah, there he is. Yes, it is.
J'ai des mots d'ouverture et puis je suis prêt pour vos questions. Canadians woke up today with a lot of folks really worried about Donald Trump's plans, which are going to hurt people, particularly his plans that he mentioned about across-the-board tariffs. Those are plans that are going to directly impact Canadian workers. It's going to be a lot.
This is going to be question period in a nutshell today. Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that, United States this, Donald Trump that, United States this, United States that. It's going to be an hour straight of some liberal TDS, by the sounds of it. Maybe some NDP TDS.
Democrats are going to do. Donc aujourd'hui, je sais que plusieurs personnes sont inquiétées par les plans de Donald Trump. Le fait qu'il a proposé des plans qui vont heurter les gens. Je pense des tarifs qui vont qui vont causer des pertes des emplois au Canada et augmenter le coût de la vie au Canada aussi. Donc aujourd'hui, c'est la journée de se battre pour défendre nos emplois, pour défendre nos intérêts et défendre nos valeurs. Merci.
Pourquoi croyez-vous que Mme Harris n'a pas gagné hier et quelles leçons tirez-vous peut-être en vue de l'élection canadienne?
Je pense que
I don't like when they do these speaking to reporters. There's no translation, there's no captions. They just straight up speak in French. Nobody knows what they're saying. Nobody knows what the reporters are even asking. It's only when the reporters say that they want an answer in both that you get the decency of that. But when it's just pure French, you wonder why you're even watching. Waiting for question period to begin. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. The Right Honorable Greg.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land. Pure
Let's see if we get hit for rocking in a free world again.
in all of us command. Car ton bras c'est porter le pays, il sait porter la croix. Tony l'histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Yes, last time they sang the national anthem, YouTube hit me with a copyright claim for Neil Young rocking in the free world. I don't know how those sound anything alike, but yes, Neil Young wanted his money.
The honourable member from Scarborough North.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the amazing 100th anniversary of the Toronto East Seventh-day Adventist Church. As one of the oldest congregations in Ontario, Toronto East began as a small group gathering in a modest worship hall on Danforth Avenue. As the church grew, it moved several times to a larger space, but staying within Toronto's East End and currently in my riding of Scarborough North. Toronto East remains a beacon of faith, service, and community, a fellowship filled with smiling faces, soulful music, and spirited worship. Congratulations to Pastors Selburn Frey and Nicholas Patrick, Elders Enos, Stuart, and Jean Lazarus, and the wider congregation on this century milestone. May Toronto East continue to inspire faith, love, and hope for many more generations to come. Merci.
The honourable member from Red Deer, Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to pay tribute to Robert Sopuck, former Member of Parliament for Dauphin, Swan River, Neepawa, but more importantly, my friend and mentor. I'd already been here 4 years when Bob showed up, and he caught my attention immediately with his keen interest in all matters of hunting, fishing, trapping, and the outdoor way of life, and we became fast friends. It wasn't long before we were organizing the Conservative Hunting and Angling Caucus, wild fish and game potluck meals, and going fishing on the Ottawa River on June evenings. Bob was a fighter. He vigorously defended hunting, farming, ranching, and common sense conservation. He pushed for the Recreational Fisheries Conservation Partnership Program, which has left a lasting legacy of fisheries enhancement across Canada. He fought for us. So much so that he was named 2017 International Legislator of the Year by Safari Club International, just one of his many accolades. Bob, I will miss you. I will miss the daily text messages, phone calls, emails, and words of encouragement. I'm sad that the trips we had planned will be left unfinished, but I will revel in the memories of the ones we took. Bob, I hope there's a trout stream where you are now, and your fly rod is flexing from the tug of a beauty. Rest easy, partner.
The honourable member from Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise as the elected representative of the people of Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. And this weekend, once again, I saw the great work being done within my riding and the individuals, by community organizations and individuals. I had the pleasure of participating in Yellow Brick House's 2024 Break the Silence, Step in My Shoes walk. Together, we raised an incredible $77,000 to support women and children fleeing domestic violence. The vital funding will provide shelter and life-saving services to those in need. A special thank you to Loris Arenda, the President and CEO of the organization. As we recognize November as Abuse Prevention Month, I encourage everyone to continue supporting organizations like Yellow Brick House. On a different front, there was the retirement of a wonderful
Yellow Brick Road, Elton John.
After decades of courageous service to our community, he has retired. His bravery and selfless commitment to our community has made a lasting mark. And also,
Yes, I'm going to just start calling him the Right Honorable Greg from now on, because realistically, he controls everything, doesn't he?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. Mr. Speaker, we are saddened to learn today the death of a poet and rock artist Lucien Francoeur at the age of 76. A passionate bearer of the Quebec idiom and the first local poet to explore rap with his rockabilly style, he was a leading figure in the Quebec counterculture of the 1970s and 80s. With his group Haute Chose, he released 3 landmark albums, Pas une chance avec moi, Une nuit comme une autre, and Cauchemar Américain.
Yes, the Right Honorable Grey Fungus.
His condolences to his families and friends, and to all those who were inspired by his visionary rebel. Lucien, my dear friend, I'll certainly raise a drink to your health on Bernard Street.
I know there's nothing honorable about Greg. That's the whole joke.
In Saint-Hyacinthe, the last place I saw you perform in 2020.
There's nothing honorable or right about Trudeau either, but they say it to him every single time.
In your mind. Goodbye, Lulu.
The honourable member from Vaudreuil-Soulanges.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the invaluable work and achievements of the Montérégie West Community Network and to congratulate them on their team as they celebrate 25 years. Founded in 1999 as the Chateauguay Focus Group and changed to MWCN in 2016, the organization has been steadfast in organizing and supporting services to the Anglophone community in Quebec. Whether it's bringing people together over coffee or dinner, celebrating the next generation of Anglophone youth through awards and scholarships, mounting important educational campaigns, and being a strong voice when it's needed most. For a quarter century, their dedication and commitment has enriched Vaudreuil-Soulanges and the entire Montérégie region. So, Mr. Speaker, to Pauline, Matt, Tanya, Patricia, Joanne, Elizabeth, Lori, Clement, Brianna, Alexa, Kim, Nora, and Tina, and of course, Nadia, thank you for all you do. And congratulations to the Montérégie West Community Network on 25 years of exceptional service. Here's to the next 25 years to come.
The honourable member from Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take a moment to recognize the Autonomy South Monaghan Food Cupboard. The Food Cupboard is a small rural food bank in my riding that has seen demand increase exponentially. They had a record number of visitors in February and September of this year, and almost half of the families visiting, well, they had small children. The Food Cupboard has gone from helping hand to absolute necessity for far too many families. I want to express my thanks to the Food Cupboard and make a promise to them all and all food banks across the country. A common-sense Conservative government will axe the carbon tax, lowering the cost of food, dramatically reducing the number of Canadians who are suffering from food insecurity. Mr. Speaker, it's time. It's time for Canadians to emerge from 9 years of economic malaise by voting for a Conservative government that will turn their hurt into hope and restore the promise of Canada.
The honourable member from Notre-Dame-de-Grâce, Westmount.
Today I rise to honour John Little, a pioneer of Canadian urban painting who passed away on October 28th at the age of 96. For over 65 years, Mr. Little captured and chronicled Montreal's neighbourhoods. From Westmount to Little Burgundy, the Plateau to the Mile End, his work celebrates the streetscapes and life in the city's core. His gentle spirit and sense of humour endeared him to many. He was a passionate advocate for preserving Montreal's heritage, famously stating, "If we knock down all our old buildings, we will become a people without a past." His significant body of work on canvas serves as a reminder of the stories within our streets during a time of great change. L'héritage de Monsieur Little sera...
Mr. Little's legacy will be a source of inspiration for years to come. His artistic genius and devotion are example for all. He was unique in our country. May he rest in peace.
The honourable member from Winnipeg North.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, the leader of the Conservative Party had an idea. His idea is to actually cut housing social programs, Mr. Speaker. One of the best examples I can cite you is the Housing Accelerator Plan. Many of the Conservatives know about that plan, Mr. Speaker, because many of them have been advocating, saying it's a good plan. Yet the leader of the Conservative Reform Party has made the decision that it's not good for Canadians. How unfortunate that is, Mr. Speaker. He's putting at risk about 500,000 homes, Mr. Speaker. That is serious stuff. That's the type of leadership we're getting from the Conservative right today. It's all about cut, cut, cut. Doesn't care about what's happening in our communities. When housing is a concern, where are the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker? They're cutting away, and that's to the disservice of all Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
Just like to remind all members, please, to not take the floor unless recognized by the Speaker. And I'd like to also remind to all members that
I think Kevin might need a hearing aid. He tends to get really loud. Maybe he thinks he's speaking quietly or something, but he ends up just looking like Ren from Ren and Stimpy. You know what I mean? Just the deranged chihuahua screaming and yelling.
Is not worth the cost of housing. Young Canadians say the current economic environment is impeding their ability to purchase a home. Our common sense Conservative plan to axe the tax on new homes sold is being praised by Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Bill GTA said it applauds the federal Conservative announcement. This is a significant step forward in helping housing affordability. Habitat for Humanity said eliminating the GST would reduce cost. Tim Richard, founder of CEO and Canadian Alliance to End Homeless, stated, "This is smart." The Canadian Real Estate Association said, "This proposed step is a positive move towards lowering building costs, increasing housing supplies, and making home ownership more attainable for Canadians. Our tax cut will spark 30,000 extra homes built every year. Only common sense Conservatives will bring home the Canada Promise."
the honourable member from Hamilton Mountain.
Speaker, our government will always stand up for a woman's right to choose what happens to her body, and that's why we've introduced new legislation to ensure that when a woman seeks reproductive care, she is not unwittingly walking into a clinic that tries to dissuade her from options like abortion. According to the Abortion Rights Coalition, about 157 so-called pregnancy crisis centres in Canada are actually fronts for the anti-choice movement, where women tell us they are deceived and made to feel more shame and extra distress at pivotally difficult times in their lives. And more than 90% of these anti-choice centres have enjoyed status in Canada as registered charities. Now they must clearly and fulsomely explain to clients what services they offer, or they will lose their charitable status. Also, according to the Abortion Rights Coalition, there are no pro-choice MPs in all of the Conservative Party. We know one member left to sit as an independent due to the growing anti-choice caucus. When will the Conservatives stop hiding their misogynistic agenda?
The honourable member from Barrie-Innisfil.
There's only one person keeping the Prime Minister in power, and it's the leader of the NDP. Remember the stunt that the NDP leader pulled just before the by-election in Elmwood, Transcona, claiming he ripped up his coalition deal with the Liberals? Well, it was just a stunt designed to deceive voters there. He said the Liberals are too weak, too selfish, and too beholden to corporate interests to fight for people. Many agree, but actions speak louder than words. The NDP leader is the weak one because he still backs the Liberals and their costly, destructive policy. He's voted for the costly Liberal carbon tax over 24 times, publishing more than 2 million Canadians to food banks every month. He's voted for Liberal inflationary spending, backing the waste like the Prime Minister's Arrive scam. He supports hard drug legalization and soft on crime policy that led to 50% increase in the violent crime. And he sold out Canadians by supporting the Liberals while supercharging crime, chaos, death, and destruction in our communities. Every day the Prime Minister remains in power, it's because of the NDP leader. We need a carbon tax election now.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change has managed to win unanimous support. Both environmental groups and the energy industry have attacked his Liberal plan to cap Canadian energy production. He has won unanimous support for this bad decision, and it's his duty and obligation to demonstrate transparency in the Sustainable Development Technology Fund scandal, which is at the heart of the current paralysis in the House. The minister still holds assets in funds managed by Cycle Capital, the firm that is literally at the heart of the Liberal Green slush fund scandal. Cycle Capital, headed by a former Green Fund board member, has received over $10 million in public funds. We've been raising this issue for weeks in committee, and now, after relevant questions from the Journal de Montréal, the minister's office has refused to provide details of its holdings. Let's not forget, Mr. Speaker, that the Auditor General has concluded that over the past 5 years, this green slush fund paid out $390 million while breaching ethics regulations. The minister must get to the bottom of this.
The honourable member from Kings Hants.
Speaker, I rise today to proudly recognize and celebrate the contribution of the Harvey family from Hants County, Nova Scotia, specifically 8 brothers who served Canada during World War II. Marvin, Burl, Edmund, Victor, Garnet, Ernest, Irvin, and Avard Harvey all answered the call of duty to fight for democracy and freedom. Marvin and Burl made the ultimate sacrifice and were killed in action during the campaign in Europe. It is believed that the Harvey brothers represent the most siblings from one family to serve in combat during World War II from North America or anywhere in the British Commonwealth. I want to sincerely thank the Hants North Legion, notably Jeff Thurber and others who have worked so hard to dedicate a permanent, beautiful monument to recognize the Harvey brothers and other veterans who have served Canada across the Hants North community. The Harvey brothers represent the epitome of sacrifice to their family and to all those who have served and continue to serve with the Canadian Armed Forces. We as a country are forever grateful. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member from Churchill, Coactonuk-Aski.
Today I rise in support of the work of the
Where, Greg? Sorry?
The UN. After the horrors of World War II, we were leaders in terms of peacekeeping, leaders in supporting peace and human rights through multilateralism. In recent months, we have seen an unprecedented attack on the UN by Israel's far-right government. They have killed UN workers in Gaza, pushed to defund and then ban UNRWA, bombed 70% of UNRWA locations in Gaza, shot at UN peacekeepers in Lebanon, banned the UN Secretary General, attacked the UN Special Rapporteur on Palestine. And where is Canada to defend the UN and stand up to Israel's far-right government waging genocide? Canada is part of the problem. We must never forget the lessons of history. Canada and Canadians can and must be a voice in support of the UN and multilateralism and take concrete action to stop genocide and stand up for peace now.
The honourable member for Jonquière. The honourable member for Jonquière. We have been calling on the government since July 2023 to assume its responsibilities with regard to the PFAS-contaminated water at the Bagotville base. Water treatment costs have skyrocketed, and the city of Saguenay will have to spend $70 million a year to provide La Baie residents with a source of drinking water until they find a permanent solution. We need to act quickly to prevent this expense from becoming a tax for Saguenay residents. Municipal taxes should be used to finance the city's infrastructure and not pay for drinking water. Unfortunately, this costly Conservative Liberal coalition doesn't seem to want to take its responsibilities, and the Liberals prefer to drag their feet and pass the buck on to the next government, while the Conservative MP for Chicoutimi-Lafjord is afraid to make any commitments. He's so absent from the issue that the citizens of La Baie are thinking of putting his picture on the back of milk cartons to find him. There's hope. A Bloc Québécois member will soon be elected in Chicoutimi-Lafjord.
The honourable member from South Shore, St. Margaret's.
While 2 million Canadians visit food banks every month, the radical Liberal Environment Minister continues to benefit from the Liberal Green Slush Fund, where Liberal insiders funneled $400 million to their own companies. Le Journal de Montréal reports that Cycle Capital companies received $275 million from Canadian taxpayers, while their founder sat on the slush fund board. The radical Liberal Environment Minister was Cycle Capital's lobbyist prior to running for office, lobbying this Liberal government 47 times, including many meetings with the Prime Minister's friend, Jerry Butts. The radical Environment Minister disclosure continues to report that he has a financial interest in Cycle Capital while sitting in cabinet. It pays well to be a friend of this Prime Minister. While the radical Liberal Environment Minister is patting his pockets as Cycle Capital vacuums up taxpayer money, Canadians can no longer afford to heat, feed, and house themselves. Is this the minister's financial gain? Is this minister's financial gain the reason these NDP Liberals won't turn over the documents uncensored to the RCMP?
The honourable member for Sudbury. Mr. Speaker, last week, the Conservative leader announced his intention to cut housing projects across the country. He is proposing irresponsible cuts that will have a devastating impact on housing progress in Canada. And even his own MPs are hiding behind him to plead for funding for their own communities. Let's be clear about what's at stake here. The Conservatives' irresponsible housing cuts could jeopardize up to 750,000 homes over the next decade. Canadians can't afford the Conservatives' reckless cuts to housing. Conservative members must stand up for their communities. Mr. Speaker, it's obvious. We need to build more housing, not less.
Oral questions.
Question period has begun. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, after Prime Minister Harper managed to exempt Canada from the Buy American policies, this Prime Minister caved in and allowed Donald Trump to reimpose those tariffs. After Mr. Harper succeeded in putting an end to the softwood lumber tariffs, this Prime Minister caved in again to Donald Trump and saw those tariffs reimposed. Can Canadians have a leader that will defend jobs and bring our companies back home? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, whatever from the Conservative leader. We defended supply management. We defended our aluminum and steel workers. We defended NAFTA and improved it for people on both sides of the border. But the Conservative Party and this Conservative leader, they're the ones who lowered investment in defense spending to less than 1% of GDP, and that had consequences for border security. We're the ones who are going to stand up for Canadian security. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The New York Times reported a decade ago that Canada had the richest middle class in the world, and the median incomes for Canadians were higher than in the United States. Oh, how things have changed after 9 years of liberal taxes, red tape, and attacks on our energy sector. Americans make $32,000 more than Canadians, and now a newly elected American president wants to take our jobs for Americans. We understand why Donald Trump wants to take Canadian jobs, but why does this Prime Minister want to help him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we successfully renegotiated NAFTA and protected Canadian jobs, protected steel workers and aluminum workers, protected our supply managed sectors and agricultural workers, protected Canadians from one coast to coast to coast, from coast to coast, the leader of the Conservative Party at the time referred to our approach as dumb, Mr. Speaker. Successfully standing up for Canadians is not dumb. But you know what is dumb, Mr. Speaker? Refusing to get your security clearance so you can actually protect members of your caucus, so you can protect Canadians, get the briefings necessary on national security.
Wow, he was to coast to coast to coast to coast.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, his approach was dumb. It was dumb to let the Americans reimpose Buy America rules that Harper had got lifted. It was dumb to let Trump impose softwood lumber tariffs that Biden has now doubled. But you know what is dumb, dumber, and dumbest of all? Imposing a 61-cent a liter carbon tax that will force our trucking companies, our factories, and our mines to head south of the border into the arms of President Trump. We know why he wants to create American jobs with the Canadian money, but why does this Prime Minister want to help him?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we stood up and protected Canadian jobs, Canadian industry, and Canadian trade. We know that the American government cares about creating prosperity in North America, and we're going to do it together. But what the American government, and particularly this president, also cares about is defense and national security. Well, the leader of the Conservative Party was sitting around the cabinet table when they dropped spending on defense to below 1%, and the Americans won't understand any more than Canadians do why the leader of the opposition refuses to take national security seriously, refuses to get his...
Colleagues, I know it's Wednesday. It's
Oh.
really important, though, that we have an opportunity to only recognize the person who's speaking at a time so that the speaker...
Greg seems to be in a
can
good
hear
mood.
what's
Let's
going
see
on.
how long this lasts.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, maybe the reason why Conservatives were able to get rid of Buy America and softwood lumber tariffs is because we helped the Americans crush the Taliban and ISIS, whereas this Prime Minister couldn't even shoot down a Chinese weather balloon over northern Canada. Now he wants to impose a tariff on his own companies, a 61 cent a liter carbon tax, 300% higher than it is right now, where there's a 0% carbon tax south of the border. Why does he want to create an avalanche of Canadian businesses, jobs, and paychecks leaving for America?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, we saw it once again right now. The Conservative leader constantly talking down the members of the Canadian Armed Forces, talking down and nickel and diming our veterans. They shuttered 9 veteran services offices, cut thousands of staff from people helping veterans, and made cuts to the Canadian Armed Forces that brought our spending on defense to below 1%. Mr. Speaker, he won't even commit to our timeline to get it up to 2%. And he will not get his security clearance so he can get the briefing necessary to keep all Canadians safe.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, 10 years ago, the New York Times said that Canada's middle class was the most affluent in the world and that the average income was higher in Canada than in the U.S. Today, the average Canadian worker earns $32,000 less than their American counterpart after tax, because of all the taxes and economic obstacles the Liberals have put in place. Now the Americans want to steal our jobs and bring them to the U.S. Can there not be an election so that Quebecers can choose who is going to defend their jobs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canadians remember very clearly what Stephen Harper's approach was, which was to bow down to the Americans. But we stood up to protect supply management, to renegotiate NAFTA, to protect our aluminum and steel workers. We will always stand up for the Canadian worker. And we're going to invest in national security, which is the thing that Conservatives failed to do. They lowered spending to less than 1% of GDP. And at the same time, the Conservative leader keeps refusing to get his security clearance and to take national security seriously. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it seems likely that after the election of President Trump yesterday, a certain number, in fact, a definite number of people in the U.S. will seek to leave the U.S. and will seek asylum here in Canada. Has the government already made plans to manage the influx of asylum seekers, knowing that people who've been here for 2 weeks can make a refugee claim as they did through Roxham Road? The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Speaker, like any responsible government, for months we've been preparing for whatever the outcome was of the U.S. election last night. We will always work to protect our economy, our workers in the forestry industry, our farmers, our aluminum and steel workers, and we're going to be there to protect the integrity of our borders and our immigration system. We've always been able to work well with the Americans, and we'll keep doing that in order to manage the border and the economy.
Whoa, managing and defending the border. Somebody's sounding like a far-right extremist.
That seems a bit of a general answer. It's a bit vague, given that there could be millions of people in the U.S. who are going to have to leave, perhaps even in short order. And if they happen to get through in an irregular fashion and stay for a couple of weeks, then they will be able to stay longer. Has the government taken steps to at least ensure that asylum seekers will be distributed according to the population of each province and Quebec? No. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, this government has already shown its ability to work to protect the integrity of both our immigration system and our borders in working together with the Americans to improve the system and also to make sure that Roxham Road was closed down. We've been able to take steps to better distribute refugees across the country. We will continue to work responsibly and reasonably to ensure that our borders and our immigration system are managed responsibly.
Canadians are worried that Donald Trump's plans will hurt people. They're particularly worried that his plans to impose across-the-board tariffs are going to hurt Canadian jobs. It's going to mean that the cost of everything is going to go up. So will the Prime Minister today stand up today and say that Donald Trump's plans are wrong?
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
What the heck was that, Jagmeet?
Mr. Speaker, as we've demonstrated before, we will continue to work constructively with the American administration. We will continue to defend Canadian jobs and interests while we look to create growth and prosperity on both sides of the border. We stood up for Canadian agricultural workers, for Canadian steel and aluminum workers, for Canadians from coast to coast to coast, and we did it with a Team Canada approach that brought together labor union, businesses, premiers of all different provinces. We will continue to work together to stand up for Canadians and create prosperity for everyone in North America.
That's right. The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Canadians are worried about losing their jobs.
What Donald Trump is proposing to do threatens jobs in Canada. He's threatening to put tariffs on things that will increase the cost of living and also threaten jobs at a time when the cost of living is already too high. Is the Prime Minister ready today to stand up and clearly state that Donald Trump is wrong? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, when Mr. Trump, during his first term as president, threatened to rip up NAFTA, we were able to work with him not just to defend workers and the Canadian economy, but also to improve the deal to create opportunities for everyone in North America. We will continue to work responsibly to defend the values, interests, and jobs of Canadians, while at the same time knowing that we can do this together to create more prosperity all across North America. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. After Mr. Harper managed to get rid of the tariffs on softwood lumber, this Prime Minister caved in and allowed those tariffs to be reimposed, and now they've been doubled by Mr. Biden. President Trump is threatening to go even further. There are already hundreds of workers in the Saguenay who've lost their jobs because this Prime Minister caved in. When will there be an election so Canadians can choose a Prime Minister who will defend our jobs and bring back good paychecks? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, a few years ago, when we were able to defend NAFTA and Canadian jobs and workers, we were able to work with Conservative premiers, with unions, with workers and industry associations all across the country as Team Canada in order to defend our interests and create growth all across North America. But you know who didn't get involved in that exercise was the Conservative leader who was sulking and said that we had to give in because it wasn't going to work. That's not what people want. People want a government that will stand up for them. The Right Honourable Leader of the Opposition. He also gave in on Buy America, that policy that was discriminatory against our construction, steel, and aluminum firms who could no longer sell their products for construction projects, government or public projects. And that was, we had an exemption for years under Harper, but then it was reimposed under Trump with this Prime Minister's agreement. He signed a so-called free trade deal, but that included Buy America as part of the deal. So can we have an election so that we can fight for our construction workers and other workers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we will always work with the Americans to create prosperity while at the same time defending our workers here. But speaking of defense, Mr. Speaker, we will not be lectured by the member opposite. He was a member of Harper's cabinet, and the current Conservative leader was there when they decided to reduce investment in defense to below 1% of GDP, which the Americans absolutely did not want us to do. We're going to increase it to 2%, and they refuse to commit to that. He also refuses to get the security clearance he needs in order to deal with national security files. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. At the time, our per capita GDP was equal to the American. In fact, Canadian workers were earning more than their American counterparts. But after 9 years of taxes and this government's economic obstacles, this radical liberal government's obstacles, we can see that Americans are now earning $34,000 more per person. And the GDP has increased by 18% per capita, while it's gone down in Canada. We know why Mr. Trump wants to create jobs in the U.S. Why does this Prime Minister want to help him do that? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I know Donald Trump well enough to know that he would be very confused, as are Canadians, in trying to understand why the Leader of the Opposition, in these uncertain times with hostility abroad and so on, why does he keep refusing to get the security clearance he needs in order to get top secret briefings so that he can protect his members and Canadians? The Conservative leader refuses to get security briefings. Donald Trump wouldn't understand that, and Canadians don't either.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
What President Trump must not understand, must actually find kind of humorous, is that while he wants to take jobs from other countries and give them to Americans, he sees here in Canada a Prime Minister that wants to help him do it. Yeah. Let's review the track record. He brought in a massive tax on energy that he wants to quadruple, which will drive our trucking, manufacturing, factories, and other businesses abroad. He raised taxes on investment. He's blocked key energy projects, and he's shipped $500 billion down to the United States. Is the Prime Minister auditioning to be the Secretary of Job Creation in the United States?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Leader of the Opposition needs to get his facts straight. In the 9 years since we took office, foreign direct investment has increased by 60% in this country, so much so that we are now #1 per capita for foreign direct investment last year in the G20. Mr. Speaker, we continue to work hand in hand with the United States, with whatever administration, to protect jobs, to grow our economies. But what the American government will not understand is why the Conservative leader continues to refuse to get the security clearance necessary to protect Canadians.
Here we go again. It's the security clearance. My goodness. Can we just end this nonsense?
Mr. Speaker, 10 years ago, our per capita GDP, that's income per person, was equal to that in the United States. The New York Times said Canadians were richer and our workers were making more money. But since that time, the American economy has grown by 18% per person. And in Canada, it's actually smaller. We've had the worst per capita GDP decline of any G7 country since the year before COVID, all after this Prime Minister hiked taxes on investment, on work, on business, and unleashed a wicked attack on our energy sector. Again, why is it that he keeps trying to create jobs for Americans? Why don't we bring the jobs home?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
And Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservative leader cherry-picking his numbers. The reality is the IMF predicts Canada to have stronger economic growth next year than the United States. Full stop. What he is trying to do is continue to talk down our economy and pretend that maybe he's going to be able to deal with an American government that will not understand why he dropped defense spending to below 1% of GDP when he was last around the cabinet table, why he continues to refuse to get the necessary security clearance to get the briefings to keep his own caucus safe, much less all Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I can't think of anyone who would more favor quadrupling the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre in Canada than this Prime Minister. Right. Well, maybe there's one person. Right. I think perhaps President Trump wouldn't mind, because of course it will mean our trucking companies, our factories, our mines will all shut down and go south of the border where they will pay zero carbon tax. Mr. Speaker, we have enough to worry about with President Trump potentially imposing tariffs on Canadian companies. Why would our government impose tariffs on ourselves?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition demonstrates that he has no understanding that the only way to build a stronger economy for the future is also to protect the environment at the same time while putting more money back in the pockets of Canadians. The Canada Carbon Rebate puts more money back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, according to the Parliamentary Budget Officer, according to top economists and environmentalists across the country. We're putting more money in people's pockets that the Leader of the Opposition wants to take away at a time where investments in jobs, in growth in the future is more important than ever before.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, even the opposition leader is concerned about President Trump's economic policies. There must be a problem here. A problem with trade, a problem with supply management, with aluminum, with softwood lumber. Coming back to supply management, isn't it time to urgently protect supply management and pass C-282? And he should call on his senators to pass that bill. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I've been saying from the outset, we agree with that bill, and we are trying to make sure it passes through the Senate. We need to show how firm we are about supply management, about our support for it. We've always stood up for it. We're the government that promised to never give up anything in any future trade deals when it comes to supply management. And we're going to keep our word. I'm glad that the Bloc is supporting us in that endeavour, and we will continue to protect our supply-managed farmers. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The comparison between the government's will and firmness and its actual results is pretty obvious. A lot of economists say that the economic policies of Republicans will cause inflation. Isn't it time to urgently protect the purchasing power of those aged 65 to 74 by restoring equity within the OAS for everyone, as the Bloc is demanding? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we all know how global inflation has been difficult for Canadians, particularly for seniors, and that's why, as a government, we worked so hard to bring inflation down in Canada faster than in the U.S. and in other parts of the world. And that's also why interest rates have gone down quicker in Quebec than in other parts of the world. We will continue to be a government that manages public finances responsibly in order to make sure that people can continue to enjoy lower interest rates, and we will continue to invest in programs like dental care and pharmacare that will help seniors too. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Having capitulated and allowed President Trump to reimpose the softwood lumber tariffs that Stephen Harper had taken off, And now Biden having doubled those tariffs, our softwood industry hemorrhaging jobs. One way to boost the industry is to build some homes. It turns out I've got a common sense plan to cut the wasteful bureaucracy that has built 0 homes and use the savings to axe the sales tax and boost home building by 30,000 new homes per year. Wow. Will the Prime Minister accept my common sense plan?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the problem with the Leader of the Opposition's so-called plan is that it actually cuts billions of dollars of investments from municipalities across the country who are counting on it to build hundreds and even thousands of units of housing that Canadians so desperately need. His plan is, once again, cuts and austerity, fights with municipalities, fights with the provinces, not building the homes that matter for Canadians. Once again, he's completely out to lunch, demonstrating an unwillingness to help Canadians, except a willingness to help himself with political attacks.
I don't even know what in the word salad that was, but that's Trudeau for you.
After 9 years, he's doubled housing costs, and Canada has the fewest homes per capita of any country in the G7. Maybe it's because his housing minister said of these $8 billion of bureaucracies, quote, the Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't go towards the cost of building houses. It actually doesn't lead to the construction of specific homes. The Housing Accelerator doesn't actually fund directly building homes. And it's built 0 homes. 0 homes built with this bureaucracy. So why not follow my common sense plan to axe the sales tax and build the homes?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, 18 Conservative caucus members stood up and asked for housing investments in their municipalities across the country from this Housing Accelerator Fund that he is promising to cut. And Mr. Speaker, I'm going to channel my old job as a school teacher. The Leader of the Opposition actually spent a lot of time and effort rooting out which 18 members had asked for this money for their municipalities for housing. If he spent half as much time rooting out foreign interference as he did rooting out people who are asking for more housing, we might be better off as a country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
No, these MPs were just trying to solve the case of unsolved mysteries. Yes. Where are all these homes? Right. Listen, could you point out any one of them? And so they wrote the minister 18 letters, and he got 18 letters, and he couldn't respond with even one home that his $8 billion bureaucracy has built. All these 18 MPs tried to help the hopeless minister. So let me try again with a real plan to build the homes. Axe the tax.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the MP for St. Albert Edmonton asked, the requested federal funding is critical to making this needed development a reality, a development that will help address the significant shortage of affordable housing options in the community. At the same time, the mayor of Butternut Valley in New Brunswick pointed out that this is a program we need, and even the local MP
sounds like a magical place.
This funding will provide much needed housing in this.
Oh, Greg is going to deliver a smackdown.
I don't like to interrupt the Prime Minister. He does have time left on his clock, but it was difficult for the chair to decipher what was being said. I'm going to ask the Honourable Prime Minister to take it for the last 15 seconds, please, and so that I can hear what is happening or what the question is being answered. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the MP for Fundy Royal wrote, this half funding will provide much needed housing in this area. So much so that when the Leader of the Opposition announced he would cancel it, the Mayor of Butternut Valley in that riding, Alan Brown, responded very strongly that this money will help build homes. And why is the Conservative Leader blocking it?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, he's got lots of politicians that love to receive other people's money, but he doesn't have any homes to show for it. And listen, he's too afraid to have a carbon tax election.
right.
Let's have a compromise here. Why don't we have a housing tax election? Okay? Here's how it would work. He can the MDP Liberals will
Can we
campaign
just
on
have a
giving
normal
billions
election?
more to bureaucracies, and we'll campaign on a plan to axe the tax and build the homes. What do you say? Housing tax?
Uh-oh.
Order.
Colleague.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the only so-called plan the Leader of the Opposition put forward is a plan for cuts on austerity, a plan to cut billions of dollars of investments that are needed by municipalities to unlock the building of thousands of homes. Why doesn't he want to see thousands of homes built across the country? Because he'd rather instrumentalize for his own political gain the sufferings and the challenges facing by Canadians rather than to solve the challenges. Just like he refuses to solve the challenge of foreign interference in his own caucus by refusing to get the necessary security briefings and security clearance that'll keep his caucus and Canadians safe.
You're losing your caucus.
Oh, I heard
the
that one.
honourable member from Burnaby South.
The Liberals continue to break their promise to eliminate the marriage after 60 pension clause. They label women as gold diggers and push veterans and their families into poverty. This government announced $150 million for veterans 5 years ago, but hasn't spent a single penny. Veterans and their families are owed a good life. Will the Prime Minister eliminate this sexist, archaic pension clause, or does he still believe veterans are asking for too much?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've invested over $11 billion in supports for veterans over the past years after the Conservative government demonstrated that they were nickeling, diming veterans for photo ops, shuttering 9 veteran service centers, firing thousands of people working to directly support veterans. We've been there for our veterans. We will continue to invest in supports for them. We will continue to protect them from the Conservative cuts. We will be there to honor and recognize their service, not just this week on Veterans Week, but every single week throughout the year.
The Honourable Member from Nunavut.
More and more Indigenous people are still dying at the hands of law enforcement. Despite urgent calls to save lives, the Liberals have done nothing. I grieve with the Inuit family in Sudluit, Nunavik, after their son Joshua was killed. We need justice for twins Joshua and Garnet Papigatuk. We need more de-escalation tactics and Indigenous-led crisis response teams. When will this government listen to the urgent demands from Indigenous peoples so they can live in safe communities?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Kuyanamik, for my colleague's question. We know how difficult situations there are in far too many Indigenous communities, including Inuit communities across Nunavut, which is why we've tripled investments into Indigenous communities since 2015, with $32 billion in investments expected in 2024-2025 alone. We know there is much more to do, including even stronger partnerships on Indigenous policing, on community security, community safety, on housing, on supports for young people. There is much more to do. We will continue to work hand in hand, work with local governments and Indigenous governments to get it done.
The Honourable Member for Marcorel-Fortin. Mr. Speaker, last year we signed an historic agreement with Quebec in order to mobilize joint investments of $1.8 billion in affordable housing. As part of the Housing Accelerator Fund, and last week, the Conservative leader announced his intent to cut this fund and to tear up our agreement with Quebec. jeopardizing all the housing projects. The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank my colleague from Malcorel-Fortin. The Conservatives' plan is to cancel housing projects across the country. In Quebec, its solution is to tear up the agreement we signed with that province to the tune of $900 million for affordable housing projects. We're talking about some 8,000 of those projects. Even the Minister of Finance Quebec thinks that this Conservative leader is costly and inefficient. So we can't count on, Quebecers cannot count on the Conservative leader because all he will do is cut, cut, cut. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Prime Minister capitulated and allowed Trump to reimpose tariffs. And there are 3 sawmills in Saguenay that had to shut down. One way of stimulating the demand for Canadian lumber is by building homes. But the Prime Minister is fighting to build bureaucracy. And so they're not building houses at all. I propose the idea of removing the GST on new homes, which would allow for the building of 30,000 some homes. Would he call an election to make sure that the GST can be removed from new homes? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers see very clearly what this Conservative Party is trying to do. It is trying to cut everywhere and ensure an austerity plan. The Conservative leader would cut $900 million of joint investments with Quebec to create some 8,000 affordable homes. That is what he wants to do. He just wants cuts for Quebecers. He is throwing an agreement into the garbage. He's petty politicking, and that's not what Quebecers need. They need investments and they need homes, and that's what he wants to cut. Before continuing with the Leader of the Opposition, I would just like to remind all members, and I've seen this on both sides, please do not rise too much before the Speaker recognizes you because it distracts me somewhat. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It would be bad enough for the Prime Minister to want to give our energy jobs to the Americans who've doubled their production over the last couple of decades, but he wants to actually give it over to the Venezuelan, Iranian, and Russian dictatorships by cutting Canadian energy production by 35%. Mr. Speaker, the Americans reduced their emissions by more than, while ours went up, by increasing natural gas production and using it to replace dirty coal. We could do exactly the same. Why won't he follow a common sense plan to produce more clean, green Canadian energy rather than giving our jobs to dirty dictators?
Yes, we need more stuff to be made here in Canada.
Performance was designed to distract from is the fact that under the Conservative government of Mr. Harper and that current leader, they couldn't get anything built. We built the Trans Mountain Pipeline extension. We built TMX. We understand that getting good prices for our oil was important, not just for Alberta, but for the entire Canadian economy. And we are moving forward to make sure that even as the oil companies are making record profits, we're putting a cap on emissions, not on production, not on profits, but on emissions, because Canadians care.
I ask the honourable member from Lakelands please not take the floor unless he's recognized by the chair. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Common sense Conservatives approved and saw the completion of 4 pipelines with no tax dollars to subsidize them. And we believe businesses should make money rather than take money. By contrast, this Prime Minister has pushed $100 billion of energy investment out of Canada, most of it into the United States. And once again, I can imagine that the champagne will be popping over at the Trump Tower when they find out how much more Canadian money this Prime Minister wants to send south. Why does he want to kill Canadian jobs? Why don't we bring home production and paychecks for our people?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Leader of the Opposition just admitted that he wouldn't have put a penny into TMX. He wouldn't have made it happen. This is something that matters to Alberta. It matters to the oil workers there.
Order.
Greg is no longer happy.
Order. The Right Honourable Prime Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader just admitted he would not have invested in TMX. He would not have gotten it built. But, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the aisle, we will stand up for Alberta. We will stand up for oil and gas workers across the country because we know that getting overseas markets for our oil and gas is...
Uh-oh. He hasn't muted the microphone yet, but I bet his finger is itching.
Colleagues, it should be possible for the honourable member from Lakelands, please. The honourable Prime Minister, 25 seconds left, please.
Mr. Speaker, once again, we see that the Conservative leader will not stand up for workers across the country. He won't stand up for Albertan oil workers. We got the TMX pipeline built because we know that getting a better price for our oil by being able to ship it across the Pacific
it's
is
gonna
a way
happen.
of creating jobs and
The
prosperity
Conservatives
that
are just
allow us to
so
build
rowdy
strong
right
jobs
now.
and economy for the future. The Conservative leader does not understand that we need to invest in workers to build a stronger future, not offer them cuts.
That was hilarious.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when we were in government, we didn't have to offer $30 billion bailouts for pipelines because they made money. That's how business works. He wants to create a bailout economy, and let's clarify how this worked.
Yeah, let's.
$30 billion. $7 billion of which went to a Texas oil company, which took our tax dollars down to Texas to build American pipelines. Mr. Speaker, all our X's are in Texas. Why don't we bring home those jobs for Canada?
Yes, Mr. Speeple.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
You just heard it perfectly clearly.
Uh-oh. Greg's gonna lay the smack down. Colleagues.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Oh.
Mr. Speaker, we just heard it very clearly from the leader of the Conservative Party. He would not have built the TMX pipeline. Mr. Speaker, we know how important it is to make sure we get a good price for our oil so we can invest in the kinds of solutions and technologies that are going to continue to create prosperity and opportunity for energy workers, not just in Alberta, but right across the country. We will continue to be there to invest in a stronger future by understanding that renewables are an important part of the future, but we need to be able to pay for them. The Conservative leader does not understand how to build a strong future or how to build a strong economy.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the votes have not even finished being counting in the United States, and there's already a debate between the Conservative leader and the Prime Minister to
Whoa, look at that
see
move.
which one will support the oil patch more strongly. That is nonsense. So are they completely turning their back on any consideration of climate change, and that the green economy is being abandoned to give place to the oil patch? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I can see the irony here when I hear that coming from someone who approved oil drilling in Anticosti. He knows very well that we need to build a greener economy and protect the environment at the same time. And it's possible. That's why we have capped greenhouse gas emissions in the oil industry across the country. We have also put a price on pollution to put more money in the pockets of Canadians, and we have continued to reduce our emissions while creating economic growth, which is a first for Canada. We're going to create jobs and protect the environment. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. I might tell the Prime Minister to check his facts because I never approved any such drilling in Anticosti. Now, that being said, let's talk about security because tomorrow I am going to become the other leader in the House who has seen the report that will name the MPs who have been compromised by foreign interference.
Please tell us the MPs that have been compromised. Why are we still hiding this list?
So will the Prime Minister, will he ensure that he is going to put 2% into defense spending, the Right Honourable Prime Minister? It is clear that I don't always agree with the leader of the Bloc Québécois, but I must recognize and thank him for having gotten his security clearance so he can get his security briefings like all other party leaders except for the Conservative leader, who does have a responsibility to protect our democracy. The Conservative leader, for unexplainable reasons, I don't know what he has to hide, he refuses to get his security clearance.
Take it easy, Frosty.
He refuses to get secret security briefings that would allow him to protect his party and thus democracy. We don't know why, but he refuses to take this seriously, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Given that we've just seen an American election, I think I can quote another American president who could aptly describe the Prime Minister's economic policy. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. If it stops moving, subsidize it. Instead of doing none of the above, which would allow our entrepreneurs to actually build things on their own without sticking taxpayers with the bill. He wants to know our common sense plan. We will repeal the unconstitutional C-69. We will scrap the cap. We will axe the tax. Why won't he call a carbon tax election so that we can bring home these jobs?
Chris Ruth is back. Let's go.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, when we stood up for Canadian jobs, Canadian oil producers, Canadian oil, steel and aluminum workers, the Conservative Party called that dumb, Mr. Speaker. We will always stand up and defend Canadian jobs, as we have in the past, as we create more opportunities for Canadians right across the country, and as we protect our national security. What the Americans will not understand is why the Leader of the Opposition, who desperately wants to become Prime Minister, refuses to get the necessary security clearances so he can keep his party safe.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I've already explained how $500 billion of our dollars have left the country since this Prime Minister took office. Canadian investment dollars paying American workers while our people can't afford food and homes. But don't take my word on how uninvestable the country has become. Take the word of carbon tax Carney. The Prime Minister's lead economic advisor has just moved his $100 billion company to New York City. If the Prime Minister's own top economic advisor doesn't have faith in his economic plan, then why should anyone else?
I don't think anybody has faith in Trudeau anymore.
Mr. Speaker, what the Leader of the Conservative Party hasn't explained is why he's treating national security like a dodgeball game. He ducks allegations of foreign interference in his own caucus. He dives away from dies as he turns a blind eye towards investments in our communities by foreign interferers, and he dodges the tools necessary to keep his party safe. Why won't he get the briefing, get the clearance, protect Canadians?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister likes to spread crackpot conspiracy theories instead of defending his economic record. But why wouldn't he? When you've doubled housing costs, you distract. When you've doubled food bank use, you divide. When you've doubled gun crime, you use fear to turn people's attention away. And when you've doubled the national debt to a point that even your top economic advisor is fleeing the economic carnage you have created, you do anything possible to change the subject. If he can't defend his economic record, why not have a carbon tax election so that I can take it?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
can't even defend the members of his own caucus because he refuses to get the necessary security clearance. And he likes to talk about crackpot conspiracy theories. It's not a crackpot conspiracy theory when his own members of the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians signed a report that was released publicly that talks about the fact that the Indian government interfered in the past Conservative leadership campaigns. Or is that perhaps why he refuses to get the security clearance necessary, because he doesn't think he'd pass the security clearance because of Indian interference in his
Who do you have next? Huh? The honourable member from Kitchener-Conestoga.
Greg was like, what's going on here? I'm kind of lost.
Stood on the front lines, often at significant personal sacrifice to protect the values that Canadians hold dear. They deserve our unwavering and ongoing support. Veterans still recall the severe cuts made by the previous Conservative government, which dismantled the very institutions meant to support them. Can the Prime Minister inform this House about the measures our government has implemented to enhance and expand the important supports our Canadian veterans deserve?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Kitchener-Conestoga for his hard work and his leadership. Conservatives didn't think twice when they cut vital supports for veterans and their loved ones. They even had the nerve to tell veterans, and still are saying it, to tell veterans that closing and cutting over 1,000 workers wouldn't impact veterans' abilities to get support, which of course it did. While Conservatives slashed supports for our veterans, this Liberal government has invested more than $11 billion in supports for veterans and their families. That is the right thing to do.
If I got $1 for every time Trudeau mentioned the security clearance, I could single-handedly pay back Canada's debt.
We know that Parliament has been paralyzed for weeks now because he refuses to hand over evidence to the police in the $400 million Liberal slush fund scandal. Now we find out what he might be hiding. It turns out that his radical environment minister has a stake in one of the companies that got 10 million of those dollars. This is a scam, and by the way, the official that handed over the money had interest in the very same company. Is the Prime Minister covering this up because he's worried about the questions the police might have for his minister?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, despite the efforts of the Conservative leader to partisanize and polarize everything, we still live in a country where the police are independent, the judiciary is independent, and the RCMP has clearly stated that they don't need and don't particularly want the documents that the Leader of the Opposition is freezing Parliament over. We will continue to stand up for the integrity and the independence of our police services, and we will, while we're at it, continue to encourage the Leader of the Opposition to get the necessary security clearance to see the threats to Canadians and protect his own caucus.
If you took a shot for every time Trudeau mentioned the security clearance, you would have cirrhosis of the liver by the time question period is over.
The Journal de Montréal revealed this morning that Cycle Capital Business received $10 million from the Green Fund that is at the heart of the major scandal, which involves $400 million. Who owns this company? Who has an interest in this company? The Minister of the Environment, Mr. Speaker. Now, is that why the Prime Minister is paralyzing Parliament in order to deprive the RCMP of evidence regarding this scandal? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, Quebecers and all Canadians understand how important it is to have independent police forces who have nothing to do with politics. Despite the efforts of the Conservative leader to polarize the work done by the RCMP and other police forces, we are going to respect their work and allow them to do their job. as we expect the Conservative leader to take his responsibilities seriously with regard to national security by getting his security clearance to get his security briefings and to protect his own MPs from foreign interference. I would invite the honourable members to not take the floor unless they've been recognized by the Speaker. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister was caught paying $9 million tax dollars to buy a luxury, super exclusive condo on Billionaires Row for his media pal and diplomat in New York. Tom Clark, the diplomat in question, denied he had any involvement in it. Well, now we have documents showing that he said, and I quote, his housing required immediate replacement. It wasn't suitable for hosting or for living. Wow. Wait till he finds out about the 1,400 homeless encampments in Ontario, Mr. Speaker. Why, while Canadians live through housing hell, must they spend their tax dollars on a $9 million palace in the sky?
A $9 million bathtub in the sky.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, at the same time as the Leader of the Opposition is playing silly games around partisanship and choosing to attack our hardworking diplomats and use people in homeless encampments as props while offering nothing but cuts of billions of dollars worth of investments, he is refusing to take seriously allegations made by the National Security and Intelligence Committee of Parliamentarians that his very leadership, the leadership in which that diplomat as a former journalist moderated, was interfered with by the Indian government.
Order. Order.
Greg did have a smile at the beginning of question period. That is long gone. Long faded.
Order.
Uh-oh.
Colleagues.
The crossed arms. Oh my goodness. Colleagues, please.
The Honourable Member from Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, foreign interference poses a real threat to democracies around
It's
the
so
world.
funny.
Bad actors like Russia, China, and India use shady tactics to sow division and to further their own goals in countries like Canada. Yet there's a deafening silence coming from the Leader of the Opposition. Can the Prime Minister please explain to Canadians what is at stake and why the Conservative leader needs to take this seriously?
Colleagues, it is important so that people who do not speak the other official language have the opportunity to hear the questions. So please do not.
Yeah, that's exactly it. If you don't laugh, you'll start crying. That's for sure.
Another official language. Please don't do that. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Greg just laid the
Speaker, I thank the member
smackdown.
for Guelph for his important question. The Conservative leader doesn't do what's best for Canadians. He does what's best for his algorithm. He turns a blind eye to foreign interference as his own party because that boosts his YouTube following. Now he's dodging his security clearance because he's worried that that won't play well in his echo chamber. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the Conservative Party needs to take care and focus on Canadians instead of worrying about his own troll farm.
The Honourable Member from Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, young Canadians are facing a serious crisis. Youth unemployment is now double the national average, and job security and workplace benefits are becoming a thing of the past. The cost of food is soaring, rent is skyrocketing, and the cost of living is crushing. Young people don't have a fair shot under the Liberals, and the Conservatives' only answer is to cut services. Mr. Speaker, young Canadians need hope and opportunity. Why is this Prime Minister letting them down?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I should think that young Canadians are preoccupied that the NDP seems to be letting them down by backing off on their commitment to put a price on pollution that also puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians with the Canada carbon rebate. I should be concerned that the NDP is continuing to allow the House debate to freeze and not pass our capital gains measures that are putting more money in the pockets of young people while asking those who are making over $250,000 a year in capital gains to make a smaller profit on those gains. We're there for young people. We hope the NDP would be there too.
The Honourable Member from Saanich Gulf Islands.
Mr. Speaker, at the time that the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed,
What the heck is she doing here?
left, right, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative divide on doing what science required. Maggie Thatcher and Brian Mulroney were front of the pack to get the treaty. But now that Donald Trump is re-entering the White House, we know that one of his first acts was to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. Can the Prime Minister update us? What is the Government of Canada and like-minded countries doing to protect the multilateral international system, as flawed as it may be, to deliver on climate action?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What has become increasingly clear to everyone around the world, whether it's citizens or investors or governments of all political stripes, is you cannot have a plan to grow the economy and support your citizens if you don't at the same time have a plan to reduce emissions and fight climate change. That's how we create the prosperity, the jobs, the opportunities for future generations. We will continue to work hand in hand with partners from around the world as we protect biodiversity, as we create jobs, as we lower emissions, as we draw on investment, as we create the solutions on energy and technology that are going to bring Canadians forward.
I wish to draw to the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of our former colleague and current Minister of Energy and Minerals for the province of Alberta, the Honourable Brian Jean. I also wish to draw the attention of members in the presence of the gallery of the 2024 Gerhard Hertzberg Canada Gold Medal for Science and Engineering Prize winner, Dr. Kerry Rowe. Also with us are the winners of the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council's John C. Poliani Award, the Brockhouse Canada Prize for Interdisciplinary Research in Science and Engineering, and the Donna Strickland Prize. Et nous accueillons aussi.
And we also have the winners of the Sergi Prize for Innovation and the Arthur A. MacDonald Bursary.
Wow. Wow. Isn't this just amazing? Wow. 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 All right, let's move on, Greg. Come on.
On a point of order, the Honourable Member for Berthier-Maskinongé. Mr. Speaker, there have been consultations among the parties, and I think you will find that there's unanimous consent for the following motion, which is also supported by the member for Humber River Black Creek, that given that Canada has close economic, cultural, and interpersonal ties, unofficially but growing, with Taiwan, based on fruitful cooperation in trade and investment, science and technology, education and youth exchanges, industry, arts and culture, and Indigenous affairs, all in keeping with Canada's foreign policy. We continue to join our voice with our partners to support the meaningful participation of Taiwan in international organizations such as the OMS, the International Civil Aviation Authority, the House acknowledged that the UN resolution of October 25th, 1971 does not establish the sovereignty of the People's Republic of China over Taiwan, nor does it determine the future of Taiwan, nor its participation in UN agencies or international organizations. All those opposed to what the honourable member is proposing will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay.
Adopté.
Carried.
Also rising on a point of order, the honourable member from Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions between the parties, and I believe if you seek it, you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. That notwithstanding any standing order, special order, or usual practice of the House, Bill S-16, an act respecting the recognition of the Haida Nation and the Council of the Haida Nation, shall be deemed concurred in at report stage and deemed read a third time and passed.
All those opposed to the honourable member moving the motion will please say nay. Agreed. The House has heard the terms of the motion. All those opposed to the motion will please say nay. Adopted.
Okay, so I don't even know what's going on. I zoned out there. I am so tired right now from yesterday's stream being up till like 3 a.m.
Recorded division on the motion to occur in the 6th report of the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. Call in the members.
Are we getting a vote here? I swear if they do another 20 minutes of waiting, I am going to end the stream. We will see, though, what is happening here in the House of Commons. Thank you all for joining. Not ending it just yet. Not ending it just yet. It is currently muted. We're getting a swap of speakers, which makes me think that we're going to be heading back to... All right, yep, I am going to call it here. Thank you all for joining. Have a fantastic rest of your day or night, depending on where you are. I want to take a brief look. Actually, I believe this will be one of the last question periods before we go onto a week break, as I do not cover it on Friday. I will be live tomorrow. I was a bit late today on the live, but it's all right. I will be live around 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Then we get a week break. Then on the 18th, we will be back for an exciting week. 2 weeks. Oh, actually, almost 4.5 weeks of question period straight before we head into the Christmas holidays and Christmas break. And then we will see what 2025 has to offer. As it appears it will be starting on the 27th in 2025, if that is true. So, once again, thank you all for joining, and I will see you tomorrow for question period.